Not necessarily.
Okay, we're on the wire now.
Yep, we are.
Yeah, have you seen that movie?
I have
The Wire, that was quite a series.
been watching Longmire lately.
Oh, I watched that whole thing. I was just glued to the whole thing. He carried me along, man.
That was a great series.
Yeah.
Which series is that?
Longmire.
Longmire. It's really good,
Okay.
especially for men, I think. It does have kind of a male viewpoint now.
Okay. I think we can get started. We do have a quorum. Present, I have West, Cook, Sullivan, Giebert, Potter, Knorr, and Bachhuber is absent.
Okay, Jim, Rich, do you want me to start?
Yep, feel free. I am recording already, so we're good to go.
Okay, first item is approval of the minutes from August 18th, 2021. Do we have a motion?
Susan, could you please call the meeting to order for the record?
Yes, I will call the meeting to order.
Thank you.
And the first item is approval of the minutes.
This is Warren. I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. And the next item is long-term maintenance plan for creek extending through airport property. So who's taking that? Is that Eric or Rich?
I can start.
Okay,
When the airport was constructed, we modified the creek, I think, through there and put some culverts in under it, and there seems to be some sedimentation and tree sapling growth within the corridor of that creek. So basically moving some debris is necessary, and grubbing and pruning up the trees that have grown in there. With us tonight is John Halleck from the Airport Commission, the chair, and he had provided some pictures of the work that they had done. This was referred from Airport Commission on 10/7, went to Finance and Council on 10/19, to where it was referred back to the SWAB for consideration. I'm not exactly sure why it was referred, if we're going to accept this as a maintenance item and add it to the assets, or if we're not going to do that as far as funding it.
okay. I've actually been out there and looked at it.
Acre deep.
And I think there's a lot of the trees have been removed. I know when I was there, there were lots of goats chomping around. The culverts under the runway, there's 3 of them. The one in the center seems fairly open, but the 2 flanking it, water can come out, but it immediately, about 1.5 feet from the opening of the culvert, hits a nice big mud bank. So it's clearly not flowing as well as it should. And my own feeling is the city does need to maintain this. It would have been helpful if it had been maintained prior to the flood. We certainly could have gotten more water through there quickly. So what are people's ideas?
Do we want to look at the pictures with John and have him describe what they're showing?
We could do that.
This is gonna be an exercise in zooming perhaps, but
Okay, would you guys like me to kind of give you the lay of the land, not to be trite, but I certainly
Yeah.
can. So the airport has through it this waterway, the Pheasant Branch Creek. And we tried to account for some areas. There's an area 1, 2, and 3. We just arbitrarily called them that so we could keep track of our progress. The areas of the area 1 and the 2 and the 3, all of those were heavily overgrown. It was like a forest basically, and you couldn't see through it. So if you want to roll up maybe a little bit here. So this was the area down by the Lexus. You couldn't even see through it. That area is not near, I don't think, Eric can correct me on this, a navigable waterway. This is not an issue anymore. This has been remediated and cleaned, and we have some pictures of what that might look like. If you go on down, this is the other area that was called 2 and 3. It was just off of the runway. If you drove down Airport Road and you looked over towards the runway, you couldn't even see the runway. All you would see is this forward forest on the other side of the park. So you can see the beginnings of what is a pile of debris that was cut right there, okay? So as you keep rolling down, let's take a look at the next one. You can see we've already been out there with chainsaws and goats and you name it. And we've cleared quite a bit of everything there. We've got the loaders down. And so this is actually the first time we could see really what was going on because you couldn't get in there. And so we're clearing all of it. You can see at the bottom, there's some stumps that look like they might have grown into the waterway a little bit. We cut that down. We didn't disturb those because we don't know what if, look at, we run an airport. We don't know much about stormwaters and waterways, right? So rather than do additional damage, we just cut everything down as low as we could. You want to go to the next photo, please? Here's another photo. You can now looking out. This is even clearer. You can see over the edge there with the piles. All of this was kind of a woods. And so we've cleared around all the edges. We piled it up into burn piles. And the intention here as we go forward, I took a couple of the last ones. I took just as I sent them to you from the iPhone. You can see it's all clear. And the piles are there alongside of the creek. The guys have taken rakes and we've raked out the creek so that there's nothing in the creek to stop the flow of water. The waterway is essentially clear, other for some stumps that are along the edge. You want to continue on. And this is that first part I showed you earlier. We've cleaned all of that up. That's gone. This is a pond down by the park where Quislings dug the next one down. They dug a hole for water for their irrigation. We cleared all along that. So you can see the waterways. This is one picture Eric and I and Rich Morey. We're looking, the water does flow, although it has been silted up. If you continue on, you can see that there's dirt in front of the openings. This is a navigable waterway. And we intend, I don't know if we're outside of the legal limits here, but we intend to try to clear out enough of it so that it flows into the creek yet this year. The next one is not a navigable waterway. This is a drain that drains from between the taxiway and a runway. And this we will also clear out this year so that it flows into the creek, so that water will all flow as it should flow, if you will. So we've cleared the area. We will establish flow, if you will. I don't know if there's any more photos.
No, that's all of them.
Okay, great. So here's kind of where we're at. We've cleared everything. We'll now we can now burn it. We can mow it right up to the till we can get to the safely approach the waterway. We will clear the end of these culverts this year so that the water will flow out of them next year. But we don't know really what needs to be done to the creek. So that's the question, right? This is beyond the scope of airport maintenance. I don't know if it needs to be dredged. I don't know what needs to be done to establish the proper flow for stormwater. And that's why we referred it back to the Stormwater Board. We can operate the airport safely and efficiently with just doing what we've done. We can mow, we can burn. It'll look great, whatever. Will it protect the citizens from stormwater problems? I have no idea.
Okay, Eric, do you want to comment on what's needed going forward?
Yeah, sure. Rich, can you go back to that overview sheet? So the best I can understand, the airport was expanded greatly in the early 2000s. And at that point, the Pheasant Branch was re-meandered. It used to follow edge of field, at right angles and cut down to the south until it crossed Airport Road. And when they built the new runways, or runway and taxiway, they meandered the creek and they put in these triple culverts beneath the runway. And that happened 15 years ago, roughly. In 2016, there was another project to stabilize the banks of the Pheasant Branch at the north end, so north of the culverts beneath the runway. So that's a navigable stream. And then there's another, obviously an ag ditch that just runs straight west from the downstream end of those culverts and heads over to eventually to Capitol View Road. That's the other section of this that's navigable stream. The city has an agreement with Rich Morey's company as the airport operator, and it spells out, maintenance responsibilities, but it probably did not consider the intricacies of this. At this point, it's engineering's recommendation that, the city can handle the maintenance of the two stretches of navigable streams. And then the airport operator would still be responsible for all of the smaller local drainages, like John pointed out, that area 1, which is off to the east and discharges down Nursery Drive. The area between the taxiway and the runway is functioning as detention basins. The airport would still be responsible for maintaining that. So I think what we're looking for here is, one, to assess what's going on now and what maintenance needs to be done in the near future. And 2 is, develop a long-term maintenance plan so that the creek and the drainage ways don't get so choked with vegetation in the future, that it's a more routine and frequent operation to keep things, moving.
Eric, is this an area that just burning would be very useful and helpful and not too costly?
I don't see any issues with it, Susan, but that's not really my area of expertise. And I'd be pretty cautious about, making any maintenance recommendations without talking to the airport people, the bureau, et cetera.
Okay, but
Well,
I was thinking,
It's our intention that we will mow and burn up to the creek as close as we can safely get there. So,
okay,
and we do that, in other locations. We are gonna maintain it and hopefully it will turn into prairie. And then we have a farmer that actually harvests that. And so that, we have a process for it. I think our concern is we don't know how to maintain a waterway. That's beyond our level of expertise and frankly, beyond our level of funding.
I'm not an engineer, but I'm thinking this isn't as big a problem or as expensive as you might be thinking. If you're willing to burn it and keep it mowed, that pretty much keeps it open, doesn't it, Eric? Equivalent to some of the other parts of Pheasant Branch? Like on the
Well,
other
there's-
side of, south side of Airport Road?
There are vegetation issues, and then there may also be siltation issues, Susan, which would,
Yeah.
require periodic dredging or reshaping, or maybe
Mhm.
just bank stabilization that they carried out on that northern end of it already.
Eric, what do you do with those stumps? I mean, we've cut everything down that has grown into the creek and we've raked it out, but I mean, do you need to cut those out or,
No, I'd leave them there.
okay,
Put some Roundup on them.
we'll find something that's organic, that's
kills the tree.
environmentally friendly. We're taking enough flack as it is.
I know you are.
You can put some leaded gasoline on
Yeah.
Jesus.
them. Do you have pictures of the creek north of the runway that's been stabilized?
I don't. Our goal next, because the area next, we can't see it because it's overgrown. So our plan next year is to do the same thing that we did south. And we'll clear it as far as we can up to the property line.
Okay,
And then we'll be in a position again to burn and to do all that. The issue, I think, is if you look where, if I read the engineering drawings right, so the culverts come through and then the area just beyond, just north of the runway is kind of like a little collection area where it's kind of a buffer, and that has a tendency to get swampy. And so I'm not sure how we mow some of that. Maybe once everything's cleared out and flows better, maybe it'll dry out. And I'm hoping that's the case, if you will. And then it'll be very easily maintainable. I don't think we know the answer to that till we clear out the end of those pipes and we let everything dry out. But right now, I think we're retaining water unnecessarily to the north.
so Rich, can you scroll down to that? I think one of this, like the second to last or photos in there.
Further,
Keep going, yeah. But you've already seen it. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, that'll work right there. Go back. So that
I'll
shows
resize it
me,
here a little.
right? So I think what you're seeing there is a lot of erosion off those banks. And I'm wondering if someone like Cardno News should come in here and tell us what we should do to stabilize these banks. If this is navigable water here, I'm sure the DNR is gonna get real happy about stuff that happens in here. And I'm just wondering if Cardinal News should take a look at this, since they've done the rest of the Pheasant Branch, and just give us their opinion on what should be done in terms of, pinning these banks back a little bit and stabilizing them.
Mark, if you
Eric
go up,
is-
if you go to the next photo, which is
Yeah.
looking from where we're at into the pipes.
Right.
So the way this is designed is that the center pipe, the bottom of the culvert is lower than the other two on the left and right. So those are actually, they take over when the flow is too high. So you can see that where the water flows on a normal basis, it's fairly clear. But when we had the big flood and everything came through, it deposited on the other two sides.
Right.
So
And because this is part of the Pheasant Branch Creek corridor, I'm
yes,
sure DNR is gonna have a problem with you just taking a backhoe and pulling that dirt out of there.
if you
Uh,
like rather us not touch it, we'd be more than happy to do that. We'll just clear out the other one.
Mark, can I suggest, let's have Eric look at it, since he's a stormwater engineer and has drawn up all sorts of plans that we've used from MSA.
Well, let me add a couple of things. So I have been talking to the DNR, Mark. And I had told John originally that since this stretch of the creek had been engineered already, that it would probably, help make the permitting process simpler. I've just started talking to the DNR, but so far it hasn't gotten much simpler. There are, plans for this, and theoretically we could do a maintenance project that just restored to plan. What I haven't found are any maintenance plans from the two projects yet. And then the original project, they dug the re-meandered ditch and they matted it and seeded it with regular ditch grass mix. They let that stabilize for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then they opened it up, and filled in the old ditch. Obviously, we're not going to grow grass in the bottom of this thing. So, we can't just restore it to the original plan. I think if it turns into SWUB wants to fund this, it may be that we end up having to hire a consultant to do this right. A consultant such as Cardinal.
Okay,
And I think I gotta get out and look at this myself. I think we can overthink this. So,
Yes.
yes,
It doesn't look that bad to me.
it doesn't look that bad to me when I go across Airport Road and look at those other ditches.
yeah,
Now that John has gotten all the brush cleared out, when I looked at it and there were the 15-foot tall willow trees everywhere, that was a problem. But those are,
But the 2016 plan for the stretch of this that's north of these culverts, it called for live stakes harvested from other areas on site. So they were actually planting willows as a part of that bank stabilization. So, we need to reconsider if
yeah,
that's how we want to do it.
field trip.
I would be more than happy to host the Stormwater Board for a look-see, so you can get a firsthand look at it. If that's something you would like to do,
Yes,
yes.
I want to help you, help us,
yeah,
help the citizens.
agreed.
Well, I think we've got two issues here tonight. One, is the Stormwater Utility Board willing to add this to our list of maintenance projects? And if so, then dividing up what the airport's going to do for maintenance and then what the stormwater utility will do.
Yeah.
And maybe the first question to answer is the Stormwater Utility Board willing to put this on our list with the understanding that the airport is going to help, at least on the mowing and burning part of any maintenance?
This is Warren. Have we established there's a project?
Not yet.
So how can we make a decision if we don't know if there's a project or not?
I think what Susan is asking is whether this is whether this is an area that the stormwater utility should manage. And I think the
Yeah.
answer to that is yes, because it's part of the Pheasant Branch Creek.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see it the same as Pheasant Branch Creek starts for us at the city limits, which is the north end of the airport, and goes all the way to the lake.
Yeah, right.
So do you need a motion to confirm that?
I think so.
So
That would
I'll
make
make a
it clear.
motion that says that the Pheasant Branch Creek runs from the city line to the lake, and that the SWAB is responsible for the maintenance of the creek corridor. Right from, I guess, from the high water mark on either side.
Yeah, and then add in to that, the airport will help on some of the maintenance in terms of mowing and burning.
Well, but they already have that agreement. We don't need to add that. They already have that responsibility in their charter.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree
is
with
that
that,
true,
Mark.
John?
You know, I haven't read all the documents, and I apologize for that. But if you want to add to it that the airport is responsible for mowing and burning up to the creek or so many feet from the creek that we can safely get to, I don't have any problem with that as the airport commissioner. And I think neither does the airport manager. And we're more than willing to do our part. We have to stay within our knowledge base. We can mow and burn. We understand that. Waterways, we're out of our depth.
Okay, I think I would like that added just to make it really clear in the future. So we're not discussing who's responsible for what. That it would just be good to be clear.
I have a little snippet from the agreement that I could share,
Okay.
Okay,
if that would be helpful.
that would,
I will see if I can locate that quickly.
okay. I mean, anytime we can make it clear on this, we don't end up with some of the other issues we're hearing about stormwater ponds and who's to maintain them. Even though this is all city property.
Can I suggest that you add in that other navigable reach then?
Yeah.
Along with the Pheasant Branch?
Can everybody see that?
Yep, I can read this.
Fences, building doors, painting, saying we've got it. Trimming of the grounds and landscaping of the lands. Yeah,
This is in the agreement already. And
okay.
I believe the airport understands that this is their responsibility, or it
Well,
certainly
let's just-
should be.
Let's just keep it in also with ours, saying that we're willing to help maintain and acknowledge the responsibility of the airport for mowing, burning and whatever. Rich, you can come up with some sort of language.
Why don't you just say that incorporated into the motion is the agreement from the airport,
Yes,
the agreement paragraph.
sounds
whatever
good.
the-
I think that would be appropriate, because I think it's covered here. It says here that the land, keep the grounds, including drainage ditches and all paved areas in a neat and serviceable condition. We're responsible for patrolling the grounds and surfaces. I mean, it doesn't really talk about the waterways per se, but you know, when I look at a ditch, I think of a man-made area that is created. An example of that would be the area between the taxiway and the runway. And then that small section that goes to the creek that we looked at earlier. I mean, that would be a ditch. I guess if you wanted to create more clarity, I guess, what's the difference between a drainage ditch and the waterway? But I think we all understand what that is.
Yeah, John, I think it's just if we've got written in reference to your exterior maintenance document, we'll
Yes,
be fine.
okay.
But there is a
Any-
motion right now, is that
Yes.
correct?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
I'm trying to understand how to craft this 20-minute conversation into a motion here. If we can provide a little clarity to it for me, I would be appreciative.
The motion is that the waters of the Pheasant Branch Creek from the city line north of the airport all the way to the lake are should be managed by stormwater utility.
Wait a minute.
And areas outside of the creek are covered by the airport city agreement, specifically whatever that section B is.
If I might ask a question, if we're going to determine the limits of the creek from the airport to the lake, would we necessarily include the airport portion of this? Or would we
Rich,
say
I think-
any agreements to any areas of the creek rather than limiting it to the airport?
No, I didn't give you, I think that, so yes, so reality is that we didn't talk specifically about the South Fork. So I would just say the Pheasant Branch Creek corridor from the city limit to the lake.
Or just limit it, this one to the airport.
Yeah.
I think to the airport property would be reasonable.
I just want to get the motion right. So however it is, I don't really have a horse in the race.
There are other sections of the Pheasant Branch that we do not have ownership for. Maybe we should
Okay.
limit this to just the airport.
Right.
Yeah, let's
Exactly.
limit it to the airport.
Just through the airport, yeah.
Is that okay, Mark?
That's fine. Help me understand your comment about Pheasant Branch Creek within the city that we don't have ownership of, or that we don't have maintenance requirements of.
Well, like that stretch next to the Bruce Company in between,
We will fairly
Yeah.
soon.
but on the other side of the creek, that's still under private ownership.
That's true. We've got an easement or something.
Yeah, I can't, and I can't list them all off, Mark, but I'm sure there's other spots.
Yeah, but I think we still own the creek itself. Whatever, that's fine.
Let's be safe tonight and just limit this to the airport, and we can
Yes.
come back at a later meeting and expand.
Can I make a suggestion, although I'm not part of your board? You might say all parts of the waterway under your control.
That's possible.
Yeah. That's,
I think that's a question we need to refer to the city attorney.
I think it makes some sense that if it's just the airport lands that we're talking about for this, maybe we limit it.
Yeah,
Yes, I would agree, just limit it to the airport property, so.
okay. So Rich, do you feel comfortable with the motion? Or what you need to write up for it?
I do. Also, I have this recording. I can go back and re-listen to it over again. So
Okay, I'm just thinking, because we've got water resources starting 4 minutes ago.
Understood. We were holding up some folks here.
Yeah, so,
So I have Sullivan with the first.
yeah, do
Cook
we
will
have a
second.
second?
Cook will second that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I have a question, this Don. Does including drainage ditches and all paved areas in a neat and serviceable condition, does that include brush clearing and tree removal?
We do, we've already removed all the brush.
No, I know what you do, but we're making this motion for maintenance, and I just want to make sure that that paragraph in there doesn't, by nature of its statement, include brush and tree removal, because that will come back.
Don, I think trimming of the grounds and landscaping of the lands covers that.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was
Yeah.
comfortable. Because, it's
Okay.
something done and we'll continue to do, and yeah, okay.
Any other questions, comments? Not all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, and we don't have anything else to do we?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, I will declare us adjourned.
Who
Thank
seconded?
you, everyone.
Ed Potter first and then, okay.
Who seconded?
Someone.
Someone, who?
I'll take credit for that.
All right, Mark, yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies.
Okay.
Okay, good
What-
night. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Eric's gonna
Thank you.
take over the next meeting, so we're gonna have to do just a little shuffling here and I'll hand over responsibility.
Do I need to sign in for the next one?
No, it's the same meeting.
Okay,
Thank everybody for your consideration.
thank you, John.